I'm Brice Bible, UB's Vice President and Chief Information Officer. I'll be sitting down with students, faculty, staff, and other thought leaders outside of UB to highlight some important technology topics that affect campus community members like you. Let's take a ride in one of our electric Tech Squad vans and meet our guest today. Our guest today is one of the top 50 data breach lawyers in the United States. Jennifer Beckage is a UB alum, a former tech business owner, and the founder of the Beckage Firm, which focuses on technology and data security. She's been a frequent contributor to the global conversation surrounding crisis response, and as you'll soon learn, she has a clear passion for technology and law. Jennifer, welcome to Tech Talk today. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, I'm so glad to be here.
So I'd like to go back to the beginning, I guess. You have started businesses, you've been involved in tech startups. It successfully spun out, and you were able to emerge into a new organization. You had a journey from being a UB grad to get there. So can you talk a little bit about that journey?
So it really started once I got to UB. I started to meet people as a student. And I had transferred here from Texas A&M and finished my college education at UB, and immediately met incredible people who were incredible mentors still to this day of mine. A lot of them were starting tech companies at the time. And at that moment, I didn't understand as much as what they were doing from a technology perspective, but I knew I could add some value. Operationally, sales, customer service, organization, helping make their products and services provide more value to the end user. So I became part owner of one of these technology companies right after law school.
Wow.
And was making peanuts at the time because it was a startup, but I was so all my friends were taking these big, nice, high-paying jobs, and I was, making minimum wage probably. But we led ourselves to a sale to a publicly traded company. That company retained me on as vice president of operations. So I led their operations and R&D, technical products and services. And it was a fantastic experience, for being a recent grad going through, the entrepreneurship path, due diligence of selling the business, all of that. It was just incredible. So after that whole process, I realized no attorneys knew technology. And I went back to school at UB Law as a second career to focus on technology. And at the time, there were no classes on technology. And everyone said, focus on IP. And I was like, IP is not IT. And, took the classes and then started a career as a tech lawyer.
That's very interesting. You talk about the startup and the excitement of the new ventures. I had an experience with that too, and it's some of the funnest times in our lives to make that happen. I mean, it all happens because of us and the people that are around us.
Yes, it's a lot of work. I remember seeing a cartoon once. There's a man on a lion, and he's riding this lion, and the caption, there's all these people around like, look at him riding this lion. He's incredible. Look at all the great things he's doing. And inside, his thought is, how did I get on this lion and how do I get off? But it is exciting, and it really, you have to have such an incredible skill set to, whether it's managing people, understanding customer needs, operation, so many aspects of yourself that you've got to pull out to make it happen.
So all of this seems to have led, with your experience and your enthusiasm and knowledge, into you starting your law firm. That was now a highly respected law firm in the data breach areas. You've responded to many international as well as national. It's still ongoing. I mean, you look at what happened in Vegas just recently with the cyber attack. How has your firm evolved into what it is today, and both in the national and international scene?
Yeah, I think it really started off as I started my career as a tech lawyer. Anything that dealt with data or computer, I sort of got those cases. And when data breaches first started to happen in our country, a lot of my old contemporaries from my tech days were now the CIOs and CTOs of organizations. So they called me because I knew technology and I also understood the law. So like any career that you have, you could have all the hopes to do all the best things, but if you don't get the case, you don't get the project, you don't have the experience working on it. So I argued and represented clients in some of the largest, punitive class actions and data breaches, and really carved out quite a niche for myself in that space. The last 6 years, I've been named one of the top 50 data breach lawyers in the country. This year, I was peer nominated as Person of the Year, my law firm, Cyber Law Firm of the Year. There's only about 15 or so law firms in North America that are certified as a breach coach. We'll talk a little bit about what that entails and how incident response has changed over the years. But we work with insurance carriers. So if a large company has a data breach, they call their cybersecurity insurance company, and they would assign us as the breach coach for the case. And that always boggles people. Why is a lawyer running this technology issue? But it's not just about technology. There's a lot of different factors, communications, internal and external, regulatory enforcement, or regulators asking questions, contract evaluation. You may have to provide notices to potentially impacted persons. There's a lot that goes into it. And so the lawyer becomes that concierge, if you will, of all those different services and bringing it together, underprivileged too. Because we want the organization to be able to speak freely about what's going on so that we can understand how to minimize risk, legal risk, and also let them feel that they can share all of those things that might be an issue so that we can provide legal advice on how to best address it.
This has been a growing pain for CIOs like myself at any organization to understand the importance of a firm like yours, which we do, and I think we work together as well. I could say it's such a rapidly evolving area, particularly related to law. We live in the state of New York. It has its own requirements. We have federal requirements. Now other states have requirements, and for sure other countries, including one just north of us, and certainly the EU. How do you keep up with all that and advise your clients or partners like a university like us, and how to address the needs as they go?
Well, personally, I read up on it all the time, right? I'm trying to stay on top and hopefully ahead. I like to think about where we're going to be next year, 5 years from now, the future. I don't own a TV, so I spend my time tinkering instead of maybe getting addicted to a Yellowstone show or whatever the popular show is. I don't even know. Right. So personally, that's what I do, but really it's the great team that I have. Sure. I mean, no one does anything by themselves, and if you think that you're going to learn very quickly that you can't. So it really does take a team effort to stay up on all of it, because as you mentioned, there's data security, and we were talking about this a little bit before. There's data security issues, but there's also data privacy issues, and those are two really different concepts. They interact and play against one another, but they are different. And so both of them sort of have this body of law and regulation and best practices, industry standards.
As these things are evolving and new breaches are happening, there's the immediate response, but it seems as there are downstream effects that organizations have to take account of now, even if they can't tell what those are, but have to be aware of those, I assume.
Correct. That's exactly right. I always say it's so much easier to stand back up again because the technology teams, this is what they practice. They practice disaster recovery. They practice tabletop exercises and train their team, what's going to happen if we have an incident. Usually what happens, it's all the other folks that are involved. So we've got, I call it vomiting, where we've got people that just start shouting from the rooftops, we have a ransomware attack, the whole organization, is sinking. And, I don't want to assign a percentage, but, large part of the incidents that we work on, what everyone thinks is happening at the beginning is actually not what it is. Could be worse.
It's true.
Many times could be better.
That's true.
And so if we have a lot of people creating hysteria and letting their emotions guide themselves instead of really thinking about, let's focus, there's steps and methodology to how we respond, it just can create more and more problems. And as you mentioned, the technology piece and standing back up again, that's one risk. Can we stand up? Do we have backups? Do we have the team to pull this off? Right. But what about litigation? What about a regulator knocking on our door? What about a customer saying that we breached a contract because of what happened and data was, accessed by an unauthorized third party? those are the issues that we're spotting as that lawyer who's managing and being the breach coach early on, while everyone else is just worried about standing up today. We're already thinking about those things in the first hour.
So I want to ask you to bring this and apply it to a research university. The University at Buffalo is highly respected, a top 25, or at least headed that way. So there's sometimes a challenge between the right security practices and then preparing for responses, particularly for responding to new laws that come forward, as you've been talking about. But then also, we're all about innovation and discovery and openness. And as the CIO, I feel the tug of both sides of that. I highly respect the great work our students and our faculty do in innovation. And that comes by freedom and the ability to explore, but you also have to be prepared for the protections on the other side. How do you find the balance? How do you recommend schools like a UB finding that balance?
I think it's education.
Yeah,
honestly, at
sure.
its core, I'll take it out of the university context
Okay,
to not make it too personal for the
Okay.
purposes of this. But a company is selling products and services, and their marketing team or their sales team, they want to use ChatGPT, or they want to collect all of this information about their customers so they can really customize the experience or send out mailers. But if they don't know that you've got to think about things like the TCPA, or canned spam, they could be violating the law all the time. And so it's really important for the technology teams to be friends with the lawyers, and also with the marketing and sales folks. We all have to understand, even from a broad brush, to be able to issue spot. They don't have to know the law. They don't have to even know all of the requirements, but just to be able to say, this might smell bad. I might get in trouble for this. Yeah. Let me just go ask someone before I do it. And look, I had tech companies back in the late 90s. We had no restrictions. We could do whatever we wanted, right? I mean, we were writing the books on PHP. So this was all about making things interactive. And sure, give me a credit card number and I'll process it, right? Now we have so many different requirements. And so education, I find, and training is a key. And not everyone's at the same plane level. Yeah. So that's difficult in itself, is you have to make sure that everyone really understands and they feel comfortable to ask the questions that they're afraid to ask the stupid question, right? I don't want to ask the stupid question in the big meeting. Yeah. So being sure that you have a culture where they can ask those questions so that they can start making better business decisions. And just like in security, if something goes wrong, let us know sooner than later. Don't wait till the end. So don't wait until you already did the mailer. Don't wait, you saw something weird on your computer. Don't shut it. Go enjoy the Bills game for the weekend, and then we'll deal with it on Monday. No, let us know right away. So that's really the best advice. And it sounds so simple, but it is hard in itself, getting these very different teams with very different agendas and priorities to come together. As a lawyer, I don't want to be the dream killer. I want marketing to do those things. I want openness and sharing information. I love disruption. I mean, my whole career has been built on disruption and pivoting. So I love all those things, as long as we can make sure that everyone's educated on the potential impacts that it could have and issue spot. And that's what the university teaches.
You've touched on a lot of things that have built to your perspective as an organization. You mentioned that you had undergone some health issues in the past. How's that changed your perspective?
I've had a blessed life. I mean, not many people could say they've had all the experiences that I've had, especially in technology and being a female in technology. I had started my own law firm back in 2018 and just focused in on data security and privacy. And on January 10th, 2020, I was diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer, which was shocking because I just finished a sprint triathlon. I'm a super positive, energetic person. I've got kids, young children. So this was a huge surprise. So battling cancer during COVID was very difficult. As you can imagine, no food trains, no one's coming by, no one hugged me, right? Because Dr. Gupta is telling us to wash our food and spray our mail before we bring it in the house. And here I am going through chemo and radiation and surgery and everything. But coming out of it, it taught me a few different things. And restarting my law firm is people are good. People are good. There are people that will help and check in, and to be welcomed back in my industry, which is a very, very tight-knit industry, despite the oversaturation of new partners and vendors in the space right now. To be welcomed back, I think sent a message that it's okay to step aside for a moment and take care of yourself. Because if you don't, you're not going to be around. So many people, when I became very public about my cancer, very high influential individuals across the country, many of them I didn't even know, reached out to me and said, I battled this, but never told anyone because I was afraid I was going to lose my job, or a client wasn't going to have faith in me anymore. And I really commend you for taking care of yourself first so that you could come back and be okay. The second thing is my whole life's been about pivoting and finding opportunities. So while I was going through chemo and everything I was mentioning before, I was an adjunct professor here teaching on AI and cybersecurity and ethics. Yeah. I was one of the first lawyers to take the MIT AI certification class. Again, look at where we are today. Yeah, right. So really also taking that time to spend some time on myself and really get saturated in a niche area. And then just to be positive. I still, to this day, it's right by my front door, and I have one on my mirror in my bathroom. I have positive affirmations that I do every day. Yeah. I'm always a smiley, you've known me for a while. Yeah. Yes. Just positive thinking, meditation, mindfulness, gratefulness. If you're good, you're going to be better working with your team, and people are going to want to work with you. And I am no angel. I have had my ups and downs and my dark moments, right? I'm not saying we all have struggles, but I think if you can always just take care of yourself, you're going to do great. And I think in a post-COVID world with a lot of mental health struggles and things like that, that's a really important reminder to do those sorts of things.
Well, it's a good reminder to all of us, and certainly the students that are watching. I think this will be a great advice for them. Speaking of students and our faculty, what can they do today, and what should they be preparing for just to protect themselves? This is, as you say, you need to understand what environment you're in, and we need to educate our faculty about that. But what can we do for ourselves? What's changed today? It keeps evolving. What are the things we should be doing for ourselves?
Just good hygiene. The one example I like to remind everyone is executives that are sitting on boards. Yeah. So they sit on a lot of boards. They're probably using their personal Gmail account without multi-factor authentication. They're receiving a lot of different information, right? And just thinking about, okay, my personal life may also have some professional aspects to it. Yeah. And so how can I best protect that information? But it's simple things, and they're free on every app, anything that you do to employ multi-factor authentication, strong passwords, right? All those sorts of things. And then just being self-aware of your surroundings. And especially in this remote world, we see so many people that are just working, and there's, the Amazon home or Google, I don't even know these things because I don't have them in my home. That might be recording things, right? Or they're sitting at a coffee shop, getting on the Wi-Fi at the coffee shop, and their screen is open for everyone to walk by and see what they might be working on. So it's just really self-awareness is really the biggest thing. It's hard if you give too many prescriptions, then it's overwhelming and no one does anything. Sure. So at least right now, one of the best defenses from a cybersecurity standpoint today, changing, is multi-factor authentication. If you can do that, and then just be aware of where you're sharing your information and question things. The sophistications of the incidents are incredible. Yeah. It's not the days of your long lost relative with some prints and left you something, or go buy me an iTunes card, even though those still happen.
It does happen.
But I've had and seen cases where the threat actor, they're calling. They're calling you to authenticate the email that they sent. So you believe it because, I've talked to somebody. I've talked to them, so they're real. Not just connecting with every single friend out there on any social media platform, because they may be using that for social engineering purposes. So again, just self-aware, just take a moment, take a breath.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is,
yes.
Right?
Or too horrible. We're seeing those incidents where threat actors using, deep fakes and voices to say that, an executive's child has been kidnapped or whatever it might be, and they hear their child's voice on the other end, but they're not, they're at school. Oh, yeah. But it creates a panic, and then they're doing things that they probably wouldn't have otherwise done. Just taking a moment and slowing down. Okay, hold on. Is this really what's happening? Yeah. isn't Johnny at school today? I dropped him off. I know he's got this. I just had a message from him. But not to be over emotional to it. And the other thing I would say is if it's hard, it's probably working. So if you've got to do a lot of effort to get into that account or to transfer that file, that's a good thing. Yeah. It's a pain because we all want to work fast.
It's too easy, then maybe you should be concerned, right?
Right.
Oh, I don't know if that sells very well.
No,
that's not
it
a good slogan, is it?
It's not a good slogan, but it's true.
So you touched on AI, which I thought just then you gave the example of using faking the voice of my child, right? And that can happen today in AI. But so that's certainly the negative aspect. But where do you see that going? And certainly from a legal perspective, as we think about those kinds of things, I can now hear, the voice of the university president calling me and saying, transfer money, it could happen. But what are other ways that AI, we'll start with the negative, and then I'd love to hear about the positive. But how is it affecting and will affect this in the future?
I love AI, so it's hard for me to say what's negative about it.
Okay.
Are there individuals that can use a technology for malicious purposes? Yes. Just like they can use anything else, our U.S. Postal Service, right? Anything for malicious purposes. So I hate to say that a technology is bad. It's how an individual or group uses that for their purposes. And we will always have that, right? From the days of cowboys on horses and bank robberies, and there's always going to be some sort of threat. There's always going to be, and not that cowboys are bad because I'm from Texas and I got my boots on, but I hate to say a technology is bad. It's how it's deployed, but it can also be deployed for good. It can also help defend. We have a lot of cybersecurity tools that use artificial intelligence to help, sift through log files or detect anomalies and send out alerts. And those can make things so much better and stronger as a defense to threat actors, and also provide a lot of data intelligence and analytics and all of that, which is fantastic. On the other side, if it's not a threat actor, the other way that we see AI being a negative is, again, it has to go back to the person or group using it, they haven't taken the time, again, slow down, they haven't taken the time to understand the power of the tool, or what the output of the tool is, or if this tool is credible, how long has it been around, has it been tested, what are the challenges to it, is there bias in it? And so they're just so excited to use something, they're just throwing either data in it that they shouldn't, or relying on it for business purposes or other purposes where they probably should have done the work themselves. But we've all used Google searches. It's okay to use a third party for tools. You just have to know that, is this source authenticated and is it a reliable source? I'm a lawyer, so I wouldn't cite in motion papers a Google search I did.
Yeah, right.
The Google search may help me make sure I haven't missed anything or some interesting articles that I might want to read on it, but I still have to go and independently find my source, authenticate it, and then cite it. So that's, again, it's really, not about the technology, it's about how people are using it.
And isn't that good advice for students? So these tools, just like calculators of the past and other things, are great tools, but you need to verify where it came from. And just as you say, you might be able to search Google or use AI to help you with some initial analysis of some topic, but you need to verify.
Right. Well, and then because people want independent thinkers.
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, there is that element of experience right now that trumps some aspects of the tool. So the tool, you can go in and get a result, but your individual experience as a professional can help round that out or second guess it or add something nuanced or new, because if the tool only has this, then it's not thinking about this. And I love out-of-the-box thinking. I love disruption. I love pivoting. Right? My whole life has been about pivoting based on opportunity and change in my life. So that's what people want. So when you're looking for a job, we can pay anyone to go run a search in something.
Right.
It's how you use your knowledge and your personal experience to change that. Now, look, AI is going to get better and stronger. That's going to override even some of that personal experience. But I don't see that necessarily as a bad thing as long as we have the right guardrails in place.
Yeah, I like guardrails. And I like the thought of over time, we need to fine tune this into referee data, right? Data that's trusted data. So instead of the worldwide internet, how can we go into legal precedent and use that as trusted data? Or in a university setting, refereed information about a particular research area, then the AI might be able to provide us with more credible insight that we can trust.
Right.
Yes. So it's great advice all the way around. This is a great conversation. As we think about students at UB, we have the best students in the world here, and they're preparing for what their future is going to be and how they can tackle the things that you've tackled and be open to things. What advice would you have for students if they want to be in your field or any field really, to as they're thinking about their future?
Start a Word document, save it on your desktop, and as you do things or go to interesting sessions, do a volunteer activity, something, jot it down. When it comes time to find that job, it's hard to remember over the last couple of years some of the things that you did that are on point. And so keeping track of all the things that you're doing, you're kind of building this resume over time and kind of constantly updating it with some of those experiences. 2 is mentors. I met incredible mentors. I mentioned, I think, after my first answer to your first question was about, my mentors. Yes. Even if they're not in your space, having a mentor is fantastic. I have many of them that are associated with the university from professional and personal levels. Many of them have become very close friends. It's great. Sometimes I won't talk to them for years, right? And then touch base and say, I'm thinking about doing this. What are your thoughts and what has your experience been? Finding people love to share and teach. So find someone. It doesn't have to even be a formal relationship, but I know the university's been great about setting up a lot of more structured. Sure. If you don't have those networking opportunities, to sort of find someone. And then 3rd is, as I mentioned, I've had a lot of different careers, and I'd like to think that I'm not that old. And I'm so excited about all the things I'm going to do in the future. Don't be afraid of pivoting. It's you're not just trying to find the job right when you get out of school. If you look back at my past, I mentioned earlier, I was probably making minimum wage at a startup, but then I was a public company executive within a few years. I had other friends that took the big salary at the big name company that all their friends and, at the parties or their parents would be, oh, wow, that's really impressive. And then advancement was so difficult. Yeah, sure. And it was hard to leave that to go someplace else because they had such little work experience. Yeah. Where in my path, I had touched upon so many issues. So don't be afraid to take the lesser known job or the lesser pay to get the experience. Sometimes that can serve you quite well.
That's good. That's such great insight. And what a great ambassador for the university, Jennifer. It's so nice that we had a chance to chat. And I look forward to seeing where you go from here. Oh, my goodness. We'll hopefully keep up.
I'll be back.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
It was so good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of Tech Talk. Check out our other episodes online anytime at buffalo.edu/ubit/Tech Talk.